Today we are reacting to one disturbing true Halloween horror stories. React to one, see how long one is, and then we're gonna split them up. But yeah.
Yeah. Imagine one of them is like 20 minutes and the other one's like 1 minute and the you get what I meant.
Alright. Halloween horror stories. It's almost Halloween, so let's get right into it. Story 1.
Gregine.
This is a disturbing memory from my young childhood. I was about 7 or 8 years old. My mom would usually take my brother and I trick-or-treating, but this particular year, after school, she dropped me off at my friend Sean's house, where Sean, our friend Johnny, and I would go together. Johnny and Sean were a year older than me. We met while I was playing with my brother on the block. Johnny and Sean lived around the block from me. Sean had a weird upbringing that I never really understood. His sister was like 20 years old. There was a big gap between them. She was always his caretaker, it seemed, whenever I was at his house. His house always smelled like cat, and his sister always had a different guy over, it seemed like. His sister was always cold to me, in the sense that she'd never acknowledge me or say hi or anything. Sean's dad was never in the picture, and his mom, I believe, was always working out of town, I guess. I only met—
Who the fuck is walking?
That house next to that house looks
Who's walking?
So
Who are you watching walking? Whose point of view is this?
Yeah, and I actually really love this though. Like, but yeah.
Met Sean's mom a few times.
Video just walking through.
We never really stayed in touch for long enough for me to figure all this out.
Mr. Nightmare.
Anyway, my mom dropped me off at Sean's, expecting that Sean's mom would be trick-or-treating with us.
His mom?
After saying goodbye, I went into his house. Johnny was already there. We all had big pillow sacks to fill with candy.
Yep.
This was around the time that I learned that neither Sean's mom nor sister were coming with us to supervise.
That's so cute.
I was young, so I sort of felt slightly uncomfortable knowing that Johnny and Sean would be leading the way. But at the same time, I felt a sense of excitement that we'd have more freedom.
What'd you use then?
Why didn't we... A Halloween bag?
What's a Halloween bag?
Wait, like sometimes when I was like really little, like, oh, that's so nostalgic. Like you just reminded me by asking me. Like those pumpkin shaped baskets.
Bro, they had no freaking, there's no way you could fill up. That's a little bit of candy. How you didn't fill that up? Just a little bit of candy.
Well, that was enough for me. Like I was just like, yay. Because I liked the little pumpkin, and then
no, I would be going to house getting.
Once I got older and wanted a bigger bag, then I'd buy like a Halloween bag, like a Halloween like theme bag. And you know, on Halloween at the store, they're always selling like different, like cute little things.
I don't know. I use a pillowcase.
Yeah, I know. So I love that because movies do that, and that's like I never thought about that.
I knew for a fact my mom would not have approved of us going unsupervised, though. So, eventually, we were off into the neighborhood, walking around doing our rounds door to door. Quite a few people asked if we were alone or where our parents were, and Johnny would always be the one to use the same lie, that his mom is up ahead with his sister.
You have to lie.
It worked every time. This was on a Friday, so we didn't get to start at trick-or-treating until around 5 o'clock. But we didn't have school the next day, so we intended on going until our pillow sacks were completely full.
Man, imagine having school after Halloween.
We took a break after a couple of hours and went to Sean's, where he heated up a bunch of frozen pizzas. At the time, I was so jealous of the apparent freedom he had in his house, not having parents who cared about what he did.
Beer?
But looking back now, I count myself super blessed to have grown up in a household with 2 strict parents. After we hung out at his house for an hour and watched Halloween specials on Nickelodeon while eating pizza and candies, Johnny eventually was picked up by his mom, but Sean and I wanted to keep going, so we eventually headed back out for round 2. It was dark out now, and it had to be past 8 p.m. There were a lot less trick-or-treaters now.
Yep.
We tried to go to certain blocks we hadn't gone down yet, which meant straying further away from Sean's house. We found a block we hadn't touched yet and continued knocking on doors. Some houses didn't answer at this hour, and mostly everyone else had a comment about us being alone or how it's getting late. We noticed a man pushing a stroller a couple houses down behind us. He was walking very slowly in our direction, probably a dad trick-or-treating for his young child. As we continued going door to door, the man with the stroller got closer. Eventually, we heard him going, "Shh." and singing softly. Eventually, he caught up to us, and he said, "How's the trick-or-treating going, boys?" And we replied, "Good," at the same time. And then he said, "It's pretty late. I'm on my way back to my house. I can give you guys the rest of my candy." Sean and I looked at each other with telling faces, as if we just hit the jackpot. Sean asked what kind of candies, and he said a bunch of bags of...
They looked at each other like this.
I know, and I was thinking like they looked at each other like, what the heck?
Different things.
That's so funny.
He said he didn't get to give much away because he wanted to take his daughter out for a trick-or-treat stroll. He did have a bag dangling on one of the handles of the stroller, which was filled with some candies. The stroller was fully covered by a folding piece on the top, so we couldn't see his daughter. He said she's asleep and he didn't want to wake her up, but he pointed ahead and said his house is just up this way. So we followed behind him as he pushed the stroller. He was walking a little faster now. As we walked, I realized there was next to no one else out at this point, even though it was a Friday night. It seemed like a quieter side of the neighborhood. The man talked to us as we walked, asking us questions. What part of the neighborhood we were from, where we went to school, basic stuff. I let Sean answer most of the questions. Him being even just a year older than me at that age, I felt like he was the one who should take lead. On multiple occasions as we walked, the man would lean into the stroller and talk in a high pitch to his daughter. Then he'd turn back and smile at us. We finally made it to his house.
Okay, this seems normal.
He led us up the walkway with the stroller and unlocked his door. After he opened it, he brought the stroller with his daughter inside first, and then invited us to come inside. Sean led the way, so I followed. I was the one to ask if we could leave the door open, and the man paused, and then said, "Yeah, of course." He said he'll be right back as he goes to get the candy bags. He pushed the stroller into the middle of the living room, only about 10 feet away from where we were standing. I nudged Sean because I felt uncomfortable. I whispered, "Why would he leave the candy so far away?" Sean didn't respond. Instead, he turned toward the living room and then walked up to the stroller. He lifted up the folding part that was covering the baby, and he looked disturbed. He hurried back to me, whispering, "Let's go." He was full on running once we got outside, and I followed behind, which was a bit tougher because we had those heavy pillow sacks.
Bro.
I still was confused about what he saw.
You can't leave the
but
candy.
Just then, we heard a woman's voice yell, "Excuse me." It was one of his neighbors. She came running over to us and asked if we know that man, and it was at this point that Sean spilled the beans and said he offered us his leftover candy, but he was pushing a stroller with a fake baby in it.
Oh, fuck no.
I remember getting goosebumps as he said that. The woman said, "Yeah, that man doesn't have a child. I saw you walking by with him." She took us to her car and drove each of us home. I know, getting into a stranger's car after that was another questionable move.
Yeah, I was about to say.
The woman came to my front door to talk to my mom about what we just told her. My mom was distraught.
Yeah,
After I told her every last detail about the night, she sent me to my room while my parents called the police on that man.
Okay.
My parents never told me anything about what happened after that. I believe they wanted to shelter me from any more exposure to the situation. My mom didn't want me going over to Sean's house anymore, and I know she had quite a bit to say to Sean's mom. I did see Sean at school once in a while still, and we'd remain cordial, but our friendship was never the same after that night.
That was it.
Okay, we can watch another.
Alright.